All right, once this person walks in, oh, okay. All right, well, we'll go ahead and get started because I've got a janky Gateway laptop. When I left my last company, I had to turn in my MacBook Air, and it was like the saddest day of my life because I had to start using this janky Gateway thing because my mama wanted a new deck and she didn't want me to buy a new laptop. So I hope I get some leap points because I'm probably the only guy running Linux trying to give a presentation today. So we'll see how this goes. So my name's Dave Trollman. I'm a senior manager with Ernst & Young, and I've given this talk before. So if you guys have seen this on Iron Geek, I'm sorry. I'm going to try to update the jokes and everything. But what I'm really going to do is kind of first start with a disclaimer because that's important, and I don't want to lose my job again. All opinions and thoughts in this presentation are my own and do not represent my employer. If I'm using memes and images, it's for storytelling. It's not for my personal profit. If I fail to shout out to someone's tool, it's unintentional. I love tools. I hope you love tools too. All right, just a quick overview. I'm going to walk you through a scenario of stuff that happens. It's FBI notifications. If you don't think that happens all the time, I just read a report that I think in 2013 or 2014, the FBI did 3,000 notifications. So if you consider that they only do notifications during working hours, it's about 10 notifications a day that come out from the FBI. I'm going to give a little discussion on why in those cases, in my opinion, I think speed is more important than forensic soundness. And for those of you forensicators out there, you can throw spears at me after. I'll give you a list of what other things I would grab and where I would go look during an investigation. I'm going to give you a list of tools during the demo. And more importantly, I'm going to give you a chance to whip out your cell phone so you can take a picture of that slide because that seems to be a recurring theme here. And then we're going to do it live. I'm going to do a demo on a compromised box, which I just built last night, so it's not really compromised. And then I'll just kind of wrap up with a reality check. So your Friday night starts with, it's like 4 o'clock. You're getting ready to go. It's 3 o'clock maybe. You're getting ready to go because you leave at 4. A van like this rolls up. Homeboys like this come rolling out. And then your first thought is, be cool, man. I got a license for that, bro, right? And so wait, what time is it? It's 4:20? Okay. But in reality, what's about to happen is incidents never happen on Monday mornings. They always seem to happen on Friday afternoons. That's just the way life works. So you're fucked. And my apologies for those of you folks. I asked earlier if everyone's okay with male nudity in coarse language, and everybody said they're cool with it. So if I start making mistakes or I say I'm going to take off a piece of clothing. So get ready for that. So you're screwed, but you don't know what to do. You can go call a consulting firm because I did an analysis for my company, and there are about 50 firms that are more than happy to talk to you 24 hours a day and can turn around a statement of work and will bill you $600 an hour to run you through the dirt. Or you could do some things that are going to make you speed up, gather some information, and really you just want to get shit back up and running, right? Some reality checks on this. Chances are you are not going to have to testify in court about forensic techniques. There are expert witnesses, and there's a whole sub-industry of people that do that for you. If you are dealing with the feds, they've got some other evidence usually. They've got logs. They showed up at an internet service provider and dropped a national security letter, and they've got whatever data they want to do whatever they want to do. If you are thinking, okay, dude, I'm just going to go download FTK and start making disk images, that takes forever. And more importantly, in a lot of cases, it doesn't really capture the information that you want and that an investigator is going to want to do the investigation. And bottom line is you really do just need to get your shit back up and running. So what I want to present to you is a list of tools, and we're going to run these tools. Get that information very, very quickly. So if you do need to go rebuild something, or if you need to get shit back up and running, turn it off, turn it back on, whatever you've got to do, or whatever you think you need to do to recover your system. I don't want you to sacrifice evidence that would help with the investigation, because generally, if the feds are coming to you, it's not a good thing. So a little bit about playing the odds. Chances are, if the feds are coming to you, it's usually going to be a Windows box that's going to be popped. It's probably going to be a server, or it's going to be some VIP system. And as you know, most VIPs are generally going to run like a really nice Dell XPS or something like that, and they're not going to want to part with it. And it's probably not the only box that's owned in your network. This might just be the only one you know about. And the attack really is only going to come from a handful of vectors. It could be a phishing attack, so someone got spearphished. It could be a web server attack, somebody popped your IIS server or something like that. It could be some sort of browser exploit, somebody went to the wrong website and got something installed on their system. Or it could just be a misconfig or a default password, so somebody just set up like the default install of an application, and then that opened them up to some sort of vulnerability like MySQL or something like that. So what I always recommend to do is scare the hell out of users and tell them that they're going to lose their system, they're going to lose their job, because that always makes them really helpful. It's a joke. No, actually, users are the best friends, because once you tell them, hey, we think your system's compromised, you didn't do anything, then they're like, oh yeah, dude, I totally went to this website and I surfed port and I opened up every email attachment I've ever seen, and you're like, okay, well, cool. Now I've got a lot of ways to investigate this box, not you, this box. So I'm going to give you a quick list of things that I'm going to grab. For me, it's about grabbing running memory. You can do a lot of stuff with that. There are tools to like get you network connections, but if you dump the memory, the network connections are in there. There's a lot of tools that will get you a list of running processes, but that data is already in memory, and you can do that with tools like volatility. Page files kind of the same way, and page files that swap space or whatever you want to call it. Master file tables, if you're talking on a Windows box, that's just kind of like an index of everything that's happened on the file system. The registry is always good. That's, it's called the brains of the system for a reason. It's got a lot of system settings. It's got auto runs and a lot of good information that's going to tell you maybe if it is a malware compromise, what the attacker did to maintain persistence. And then lastly, event logs. And again, the key point here is if you are dealing with a system and you are dealing with a large-scale compromise, a lot of cases, event logs are the only way you can figure out if you're dealing with victim 0 or victim 10. And you can start to gather that and put that story together. So get your cameras ready, open up your mouse, and here's a list of tools I'm going to use for this demo. To collect live memory, I'm going to use a tool called, it's part of the Google tool set, I believe now. It's called Recall with a K, and it's WinPMM. There's another one called Belkasoft RAM Capture. I'm going to run that too. Has anybody ever used Belkasoft RAM Capture? Yeah, you have to go to a janky Russian website and download it, and then you get an email sent to you in Russian, and then once you pull it out of your spam, you can open up and download the tool. You can use Memorize, which is the Mandiant tool. I haven't had much success with it, but I'm not really smart, so maybe that's just me. To do the page file, I'm just going to throw a couple switches at WinPMM. I'm going to use a tool called fget. Has anybody ever heard of fget? Yeah, the old HB Gary tool. It's impossible to find on the internet, but if you just are persistent in your Googling, you'll find a guy that's still hosting it. The other tool you could use is a tool called raw copy. That's really easy to find. To grab the MFTs, I'm going to use raw copy and also fget. And really what raw copy and fget do is they'll grab any sort of locked file on a file system. So like event logs are locked by the Windows process that writes events to logs. Raw copy and fget will capture any file that's supposedly locked by the system. To grab the registry, I'm going to use a CrowdStrike tool called CrowdResponse. You could use Redripper. I haven't really done it all that much, but I'm just going to use raw copy and grab a couple hives off the system. And then to do event logs, I'm going to use a PS tool called PSLogList, and then I'll also use raw copy to grab these files. All right. All right, here it goes. Let's do this shit live. Okay, sweet. Can you guys see that? Is that okay? Nope. So step one, if you didn't know, is we're going to be doing some tools that are going to require that you have administrative access to the system. So in order to get administrative access to the system, you start with a mouse. right click, and run as administrator. Yes, Windows. And then that's going to happen. Okay. Can you guys see that? Yeah. All right, cool. Step 1. Step 0, done. All right. So you're going to run as administrator. Now I'm going to go into a quick talk. For those of you who don't know, Windows comes in 32-bit and 64-bit versions. And most of the tools that we run are in 64 or 32-bit versions. So a lot of times what I like to use is an environmental variable that's built into Windows called processor architecture. Generally, when you build a system, this environmental variable is going to be written, and you can play with it. But the best way to find all the environmental variables on the system is just to use the set command. And the set command is going to tell you all the environmental variables that it knows of on the system. And so if you see here, there's a process architecture environmental variable, and it says x86. If this is a 64-bit, it'll say AMD 64. So what I like to do is I like to rename my variables or my tools that are 32 and 64-bit specific. I like to just append x86 and AMD 64 to the end of it. The reason is then I can start using this processor architecture variable in all my commands. It just makes life a lot easier, so you don't have to do some sort of crazy stuff to figure out what kind of system you're running on. There's a couple other ways you can do it. You can look for Windows syswow 64 or the program files x86. So because I'm running a 32-bit system, you're not going to see it here. But where I have program files there, I would also have program files x86, and that to me is a giveaway that I'm on a 64-bit system. You can do a right-click computer. Just go to properties, and it will tell you under system type that you've got a 32-bit system. There's another thing we're going to want to do, and we'll look at this later, but you also want to know how much RAM you have on the system. So this is just a really easy way to quickly gather information if you've got GUI access, so if like you're RDP'd onto the box or something like that. If you're ultra elite and you're doing PSExec, then you can do some other stuff like this, like look for the program files x86. You can also run a WMIC command. If I can get back to my command line. You can run this WMIC command, and it's WMIC OS get architecture. And so this is just WMIC is the Windows Management Interface Console or something like that. I can't remember, but you can run this, and it will tell you, hey, I'm a 32-bit system. For you guys that are trying to write furiously, don't waste your time. What I'm going to do after this talk is I'll post all of my notes here on like Pastebin or something like that. So you can just copy this and play with this, to your heart's content. So don't feel like you have to write, system info pipe da 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 da. The other way you can do it is to use the system info command, which is very similar to that system info thing that we did earlier. This takes a while to run. How many folks have run system info before on a box? Yeah, it's really good, but it takes a while to run because the initial stuff comes in really quick, but then it's like, oh, I'm going to go show you every single patch that I've ever installed on this system, and then that takes a while. So we're just going to do this one. How are things going? While we're waiting for that. Okay, forget it. I'll ask later because I'm going to run some other tools that take a while. So again, it poops out this system info x86 PC. So now I'm on an x86 PC. Yay. So the second thing I want to do is figure out how much space I've got, because you can run these tools like on a mapped share or something like that and have it write to a separate file system or run it on a USB stick. But again, in this demo, I'm going to dump the memory. I'm going to dump the page file. So we're talking multiple gigs of data. So you want to make sure that you have enough storage to store all that information. Even if you're like, hey, I'm going to go compress all this stuff, that information is still going to live on disk for a little bit of time in multiple gig sizes. So there's a couple ways to what I always recommend is, if you're using a thumb drive or a network share, or even if you're just copying the system onto the box, which you can totally do, I would recommend having about 2 to 3 times the available storage as RAM that you have on the system. Probably more towards 3. If you have more than that, all the better. So first off, I have to figure out how much RAM I have. So you can do that right-click command that I did. You can run system info. You can run this WIMIC command, which does not seem to work on this system. Yeah, so it tells me to go, eat it. So I'm going to go run system info. And I say, and system info will actually poop out how much total physical memory is on the system. You just have to go look for it. And then again, it says, cool, well, don't you want to know how many patches I've installed? And yeah, sure, that's cool. So those of you that know, I have 2 gigs of RAM allocated to this. And for those of you that don't know, 2 gigs of RAM is not 2,000 megabytes. It's 1024 for those mathletes out there. All right, so cool. So now I know I've got 2 gigs of RAM on this box that I have to deal with. So again, I would probably want to have at least 4 gigs. It'd probably be better if I had 6 gigs of RAM. So how do I figure out how much space is on my drive? That's a really easy question to answer. You get the answer every time you run dir. And dir, right at the bottom, is very helpful, and it tells you I've got 26 gigs of space available on this drive. So yay. Sometimes, there is probably some sort of crazy WIMIC command you could run or something like that, but sometimes it's just let the system, don't overthink it, I guess is the way to say that. So cool. So I've got that. The other thing I'll say is I've set up here on my desktop a directory with all my tools. And so you'll see the tools that I'm going to run here, and you see some of these have like .sys files. Some of them I don't think these do, but sometimes they come with DLLs, stuff like that. Just put them all in the same folder, and just makes your life a lot easier. Don't try to be elite and try to stick them in the system 32 and that kind of thing. That just is going to waste your time and make it a lot harder on yourself. So for the purposes of this demo, I'm going to set my own environmental variable. That's just going to be the location of my demo tools, because I'm going to be bouncing around the file system. So you can see now I've got demo here. So if I ever get lost, I can just cd to the demo variable, and it will put me right back where I need to be. We've already set up a directory. So now, again, I'm at the root of C. So now I'm going to go set up a place to store my information that I'm going to collect. The reason you want to do this is you don't want to commingle your tools with the data that you're trying to collect. It also means that you can just like 0.7-zip at this directory and say, hey, just zip up all the stuff in this directory. So I'm going to make dir a directory called dump. So now I've got a dump directory. Oh yeah, and then here's the other thing, and this catches me every time. Don't forget to turn off AV, because a lot of these tools, AV doesn't like the way that they operate. Particularly in this demo, crowd response gets a negative response from the McAfee. So I am going to turn off McAfee, and wait till you see this. Has anybody turned off AV before on a computer? No? Well, of course you're not supposed to, right? Oh, and there's my email if you want to email me spam. All right. So I'm going to turn off real-time scanning, because it's going to, so anytime especially an executable hits a file system, AV will try to scan it, and it will go, oh, dude, this is malware, and then it will try to shut it down, and that's not what we want. So I'm going to go turn it off. I'll turn it off for 60 minutes. This demo better not run for 60 minutes. All right, and then I'm done. And a lot of times it'll start gawking at you. Ah, your computer's at risk. Yeah, if you'd done your job, it wouldn't be compromised, right? A lot of times Windows will also say, like, you're a moron, what are you doing? And if Windows had done a job, that'd be fine. All right, so now we've turned off the AV, and you can do this a lot of times with like the SC command if you know which service you want to shut off and that kind of thing. A lot of times it's really tough to know that. So the first tool I'm going to run is WindPMM. And it's a really easy command. I'm basically just telling WindPMM to... oh, yeah. Oh, no. I forgot my... Control-Z, yeah, get you out of everything. Don't you wish there was a Control-Z in life? Yeah, that's how we all got through school, right? Copy, paste. All right, so I'm... oh, are you kidding me? Come on. Public typing, it's like doing public math. It sucks. All right, so I'm just telling WinPMM to create a file called boss. And it's a .raw file. And I'm telling it to put it in my dump directory in my demo folder. Okay. And WinPMM gives you this really pretty screen. It says, hey, I'm dumping this much. What always surprises me with these tools is how fast they run, considering like you're trying to create a 2 gig file on the file system. For those of you, how many folks have run WinPMM before? Cool. Yeah. What always throws me off a little bit is like I'm like, oh, I've got a 2 gig file and it's slightly bigger. And I'm like, oh crap! I always. Yeah, I was doing an investigation with a client. I don't know who the hell these people were, but they had a 256 gigs of RAM on a server, and they were, I don't know what the hell they were doing, but yeah, and I don't know if WinPMM, I don't remember if it was WinPMM or Belkasoft. I don't think they were too cool. Like, hey, we downloaded this tool from Russia that we're going to run on your system, and they didn't really, like, what's wrong with that? All right, so you see now I've got a file called boss, and it's slightly bigger than 2 gigs, but it's about the right size, so hey, it worked. So now let's run the Belkasoft tool. And again, you see that I renamed RAM capture. In this case, I'm calling it with that processor architecture variable. So that just saves me the hassle of trying to figure out what I'm doing. And I'm just going to call this file foo. Because I'm not creative. So this tool also runs it again. I mean, we're dumping 2 gigs of memory, fairly quickly, which always surprises me. And it gives you a nice little how much time to complete. And nobody's ever downloaded anything from Russia, have they? So no one's ever run this before. So cool. It's kind of like Rocky IV. No, nobody gets that reference, do they? Okay. All right. So it takes a while for these tools to run. When I had an SSD, these tools would run really quick, but now we're waiting on my janky hard drive to try to catch up with my VM, and feel sorry for me. All right, cool. So now, if this works, when I dump this directory, the Belkasoft file and the WinPMM file should be the same size. Okay, cool. All right, so that totally worked. All right, so now that's cool. I've got running memory, and I've actually made 2 copies of it. Actually, if you give me running memory, I'm going to be pretty happy, because now I can pull out processor. I can run running processes. I can pull stuff out of memory. I can, even pull malware and stuff off of memory. I can see open network connections. I can do a lot of stuff just with the running memory. I can even look at sometimes like the registry keys and stuff that have been touched. That's pretty sweet. So, I mean, in a lot of cases, if you just do run those commands or just run one of those commands and then shut off the box, that's actually a pretty good start. But instead now I want to grab the page file. Now, if you're using WinPMM, you just have to throw a couple flags at it. One, to capture the page file, And in WindPMM, the only way you can capture a page file is if you put it into an ELF file format, which is memory plus the page file. So that's why you give it that E flag. And so now that's running. So I'm just calling it dump.elf. Now if you imagine my page file is about 2 gigs and my memory is about 2 gigs, so the ELF file should be about 4 gigs. So math. So how's it going? Anybody been outside? Hot as balls out there. Yeah, I moved back to Michigan, and I don't remember it always being this hot. All right, this is the slowest part of the demo. Anybody have any questions right now? Seriously? Nobody? Come on. Oh yeah, all the time. Yeah. So you'll in order a lot of, I mean, that's when you usually are rocking with your USB hard drives, or you or we'll roll in with you'll mount to share. So jump on the box, mount like a network share. The tools are going to run a little slower, but the data is going to it never touches the file system on that box. So it probably does for a little bit, but yeah, it's very, very common when you run into these people, and they're like, I'm trying to figure out why my computer's running slow, and you're like, well, dude, you only have 2 megs of space on your hard drive. So yeah, I've seen that all the time. And again, or you run into the really cool organization that has 256 gigs of memory, and they're like, why the hell can't you dump my memory file? I'm like, why the hell are you running 256 gigs of RAM on a computer? So that's usually, for those of you that are consultants, that's usually not a good answer to those kind of questions. It's like, hey, let's synergize, and then you walk away with a Venn diagram, and then the Venn diagram says, you, me, moron, and then in the middle. And so, let's synergy with this, right? No, yeah. Any other questions? Yeah. Inspecting it, before you? I dump the memory and then you can disconnect it. Ones that aren't compromised. No, dude, just get yourself on the box. I mean, with admin, and it doesn't really matter, because the whole focus of this is to go grab that information, and then you can shut the system off at that point, because you've grabbed basically all the volatile information, and if you shut the system off, even if the attacker has credentials moving around your network, they're not going to get on that box because you shut it off or you're about to reimage it or whatever. And that's why you want those event logs, right? Because then you're going to see, okay, cool, there's me logging in, and then there's me logging in at 2 in the morning. Wait, I wasn't here at 2 in the morning, unless I was drinking or whatever. So now, for those of you that are paying attention to the little screen there, because that's what you do, I'm dumping the page file 50 megs at a time, and my page file is 2 gigs, so it's going to take a lot of these increments. But yeah, usually if you're dealing with these kind of attacks and the feds have shown up, somebody is already inside your network. The attacker, the call is coming from within the house. It's usually your house, and the attacker usually is running around your house. So, all right. Any other questions? No? Yeah. No, they would usually call you and say you're compromised. Here's a list of companies that we know of that can help you out, and then usually in the back of their minds they're like, hey, that's the company I'm going to go work for in 6 months. So, so they're like, call Mandy it, and then as they're calling Mandy it, they're like, hey, I got a lead for you. No, that actually you can't do that because that's illegal. So the next tool I'm going to run is fget, It's that HB Gary tool. I know everybody doesn't like HB Gary, but these tools make good tools. So we're going to run this command called extract. We're going to give it this extract command, and then we're going to grab the page file, pagefile.sys, and so the page file is your swap. Yeah. I usually am going to take that information off the box and then shut it off. So like with memory and stuff like that, it actually, if you're running 7-zip, yeah. If you're running 7-zip, these files compress really, really well. So if I'm going to ahead and compress this, I'm going to probably collect it'll probably compress to about 1 gig, and I can just take that off. But of course, then you're also thinking about how long I can keep the system up to compress all that data, right? So it's a little bit of a trade-off. The key is to just collect the data as fast as you can, so that you can then shut the system off, or disconnect the network cable, or re-image the box, or in my case, throw this system into a lake and then tell my wife that I got mugged so I can find it there. Whatever you need to do. No, I would leave the system online. I mean, unless like you're seeing active data exfil coming off of that box, and then maybe go try to figure out the switch and go shut off the port on the switch or something like that. Whatever you've got to do. A lot of times, what happens is when you call somebody, you're like, "Hey, dude, I'm from the security team. I'm about to investigate your computer." They're like, "Oh, okay, cool," and then they shut off their computer, right? So. A lot of times it's better to at least walk up to the people and just, hey, why don't you go get a coffee? I'm from the security team. I'm here to help. I'm not here to get you in trouble. A lot of security people think that that's their job, is to get people in trouble, but it's really to help out your company, right? All right, cool. So now if these worked. Yeah, so I've got an ELF file that's about 4 gigs and change. And I've got a page file and a foo file. Those probably add up. They add up to about the same size. So okay, that works. All right, those are the longest parts of the demo. So you're welcome. We got through that. We got through that together. All right, so now I've got the memory and I've got the page file. The next thing I'm going to go grab is the MFTs, because file writes and edits are happening all the time, right? So the first tool I'm going to use is raw copy, and raw copy has a really easy switch where it just says, go to this logical file location and dump the first file you see at this location, and that's always the MFT. Oh, dude, I know better than that. All right, so this is going to go really quick. I found the file, and then it's writing the MFT. It's going to write a file called $MFT. Cool, and it's 155 megs or whatever. fget does the same thing, and it tells you to dump the $MFT file. I'm going to Control-C that. So now you can take this MFT file, and for those of you that have worked with MFT files, there's stuff like analyze mft.py written by a colleague of mine named Dave Kovar, or you can throw it into log to timeline or something like that, and then it'll poop out a nice little timeline that you can play with. So now you can say, hey, this process was running. When was the file connected to this process started, and that kind of thing, and when did it show up on the file system? So cool. Now we're going to grab the registry. The first tool I'm going to use is crowd response. This is the tool when I give this demo, and if my AV is turned on, it says I have malware. So what I'm telling it to do is, and I'll show it to you while it's running, I give it this input file. In this input file, I'll show it to you. It's just a listing of different areas in the registry, so like HKCU, HKLM, HKCR, those kind of things. And then I tell it to dump it to this XML file. With CrowdStrike, has anybody worked with CrowdStrike before? Oh, they're addicted to Splunk, so they want everything in XML, so they can run this tool like on 1,000 systems at the same time and get all this information and throw it into Splunk. And big data, cloud, security stuff, or so they say. So CrowdStrike's running. Let me show you that file. So you can see here, I just told it to like regdump HKCR. And I just told it to grab all these registries. And I did it this hackx. I can't remember what that's for. The nice thing about this is it'll tell you specifically what time the key value is written. So if you're putting that into a timeline, that's really nice. So this file showed up in the app data local, and then immediately after that, registry had this new auto runs key written, and that'll tell you kind of, hey, something shady's happening. All right. So now I've got this file. It's about 68 megs. I've got a small computer. I haven't really been doing much with this. You know, generally, like I see registries when you dump them, they're like hundreds of gigs worth. So, like I said, I just built this system a couple days ago. Now, the other way to do this is to go grab the registry hives right off the system, and you can do that with raw copy. So, for those of you that do know. The registry hives are stored in C Windows System 32 config, and I'm not going to bother going there, but they're just these files called like software, system, SAM. Everybody knows what SAM file is, and that's where this data is stored, and it's basically a database file that you can go process and analyze. So we're going to go grab. I'm probably going to skip grabbing all of these. Okay, I'm actually going to grab, for those of you that know, the software and the system are usually the biggest ones. So now I've got a security file that's like 200, that's like software file is 36. Yeah. Yep, we're grabbing those. Yep. So the way I do that is I am going to go look for, you have to find, every user has their own registry file. And they have it in a couple places. So they have userclass.dat and they have ntuser.dat. So this is just a quick, handy way to go look for those. So I'm just going back to the root of C, and I'm saying, hey, show me, don't tell me the whole thing, just show me, where you can find ntuser.dat on the root of C. So I think it's going to find 4, because there's actually 4 accounts, if you will, on the system. There's my account, Dave, there's a default, and then there's a local service and a network service account on the system. So I'm going to kill that, because it's not going to find anything else. So that's really easy. Now I know where that file is. I can use raw copy to go grab it. Oh! Haha. This is why I set that demo variable. Because I'm at the root of C, right? So, ooh, no. So it gets me right back to my location, so I can rerun that command that I stupidly ran. Okay, so now I've got that ntuser.dat file. What you can do a lot of times is you probably want to append a user to it. Yeah. Oh yeah, you can however you want to do it. The only thing I've seen when it comes to actually processing this, like if you want to run it through RegRipper or something like that, it kind of takes those files natively. So you can just throw security, system, SAM, all that right at RegRipper, and it will poop out a nice CSV for you. Or you can just run crowd response, and it will automatically generate an XML file that you can convert to CSV. So yeah, there's another file called userclass.dat that's also part of the registry that you're going to want to go grab. And it's the nice thing about running this command is it will tell you where that file is, so you don't have to go like looking for it. So it's going to be like an app data local. So let's just go grab that. Stop. Oh, you suck. All right, when did I do this? I did this last time. Thank you. Yes, thank you. You're better at copying and pasting than I am, so yeah. Cool. All right, so cool. So now I've grabbed one of those. I've grabbed one of those user class stuff. Yeah. I've grabbed one of those files. So you can now take these and throw these at Red Ripper. Like so, if you write this into a command line processor or parser, or like a script that does this, you can just take those files and just throw them at Red Ripper, and it will produce those files for you to analyze. All right, cool. So the last thing I want to grab. So now I've gotten running memory, I've gotten page file, I've gotten registry, I've gotten MFTs. Yeah, I'm lost. So the last thing I want to grab before I go home and get my beer or get my 420 on is I want to go grab the event logs. So in my case, I mean, if how many guys have looked like where the Windows event log, the Win event, Win EVT directory? There's like 15,000 logs now, and I mean Windows log wants to log everything. So really, what I do is just go. I keep it simple and keep it ASCII. Application system and security. That's all you want. If you want PowerShell or if you want some of these other ones, that's cool. But I mean, these are probably the best ones to grab. Application. And so again, Windows in Windows 7 and above, because no one runs XP anymore, right? And is anybody running Vista? No. It's like, yeah. Yeah, you definitely want to give somebody a kick in the nuts. So, you know, I think it's from Windows Vista on forward, all the Windows event logs are stored in C Windows System 32, WinEVT logs. And then if you go into that directory, you're just going to see like a shit ton of EVTX files. So if you wanted to, like, you could recursively just point something like raw copy at this and go, just copy every single star.evtx that you see here. So you could do that. You know, the ones I've done, I've been like, okay, I don't really care if the files haven't been touched like in the last 2 days, or the file's less than a meg or something like that. So I'll just show you really quick. So I grabbed that application event log, and it's like over 2 gigs. Now I'll skip ahead, and I'll dump the security event logs. That is really the most important. That is the most important log you want to grab, because that. Damn it! Thank you. Raw copy. Make sure I spell architecture right, please. Cool. All right. So you can see that application, or that security event log, is already like 3 gigs, and this computer was built like in 2 days, the last couple days. So that's going to show you who logged in. That's going to show you who logged in, who logged out. If you've got it set up right, it'll show you if somebody tried to log in or if they tried to log in a bunch of times. This is really good on your servers. So if somebody's like trying to brute force their way onto a system, you're just going to see a bunch of, I can't remember what, 46 something logs. UltimateWindowsSecurity.com. Has anybody been there? Yeah, Ultimate Windows Security. Yeah, you're shaking your head, because that's the only dude in the world that knows like every single Windows event log code. What's his name? Like Randy Franklin Smith or something? I don't know. I get an email from him like every day telling me how to better secure my architecture or some crap. So that's cool. So now I've got event logs. I can throw this into an event log viewer, because that would suck. Or I could throw it in the log to timeline and get it into a nice timeline. Or I could just use this tool called PSLogList, which is one of the PS tools or sysinternal tools that Mark Russinovich wrote before he decided that he was an author and started writing books. Has anybody read any of Mark Russinovich's books? Yeah, they're kind of lame. Sorry, I'm probably going to go get sued by that dude tomorrow, and then I'm going to be asking all of you guys for jobs. All right, so with this .csv, dude, you guys have got to help me on this. So I'm telling PSLogList, and I'm sorry, I'm walking away from the mic. I'm telling PSLogList, and I'm throwing that S variable, and that S variable tells it to poop out into a CSV, and then that X variable tells it to give me all the extended attributes of that log file. So if you've ever looked at a Windows event log, it says this event happened, and then here's everything I know about that possible event, and here's like a whole history of who wrote this log file in this log event. Well, you actually want a lot of that stuff, right? So you send it that extended variable. For those of you that are running sysinternals, you know that the first time you run it, it's like, do you accept my user, my end user license agreement? And then so you just throw it that accept EULA switch, and then what it does is it will then run and poop out this application CSV file. So it's that lowercase one, the one that's just under 6K or 600K. So we're going to skip ahead. So you do that. Again, you would want to go grab ASS, Application System and Security logs, and you can poop it out that way. So now I've got a CSV file, and I can throw it into Excel and look like I'm doing some work when my boss walks by, right? Or you can be super elite and then go grep through it, because that's what everybody does, and they talk like this. All right, so 5 things we covered here. I dumped the memory. I dumped the page file. I grabbed the MFTs. I grabbed the registry in a couple ways. And I grabbed the event logs. And again, I just grabbed the application security and system logs. So the last couple steps is leave no trace. So if the bad guy's on the box and he comes back, he doesn't want you to know that you've taken any data, because that's all they're going to do is look for evidence of investigation. That's not really true. In some cases it is, but in most cases it's just a stepping stone to something else. But regardless, I'm going to reset the variable. So set demo equal blah. And now if I set, that demo variable is no longer there. So the other thing I'm going to do now is I've got this big old honking stash of data. And I mean, you see I've got just huge files, right? I've got multiple gigs worth of files. I'd go grab all this data and zip it up and take it offline. And then I would go back and delete all my tools, delete all the data I collected. And at that point, there's probably not a lot of evidence that I've been doing stuff on the system. So, cool. All right, demo over. So I made a sacrifice to the demo gods. I gave a guy a $5 when I walked by, so cool. All right, so the reality of this whole thing is you just saw me run a bunch of Windows commands that I just copied and pasted, right? And I think Mark, for those of you that were here this morning, Mark actually brought up a good point. We're really a big copy and paste society. That's how we all get through college now, right? You would definitely want to script this. If you think that something's going to happen, take the time to write up a quick ghetto batch script to do this. And batch is really kind of a good gateway drug to other programming languages, in my opinion, like PowerShell or Python or something like that. So this is a good way to get started. For those, I know Cybereason is one of the event sponsors, and they've got a really cool tool. I used to work for a company that had a really cool tool called Resolution 1. So for those of you that know, there's these tools now called endpoint threat detection and response, or endpoint detection and response tools. A lot of those tools will do this for you automatically, right? The problem is when the FBI calls you, you can't run into your boss's office and go, quick, let's call every single software vendor and let's go get $1 million and then let's go deploy this software so I can go do all this forensics, right? You just got to go do it. You got to go do the shit live, right? And also, the other thing I will say is if you do hire consultants, be very wary of who you call and what you call and what they do. Just shadow these homeboys. We've had in previous lives, I've worked with companies that have been compromised that hire a consultant, and I asked them kind of, what did the consultant do? They said, oh, he showed up and then he ran FTK on all the systems, downloaded a bunch of stuff to hard drives and then drove away, and then gave me a report 3 weeks later. And I was like, well, what did it say? Oh, he found malware on all the systems. Okay, that's not really incident response, right? You're there to hold the hands of the client and get them through the incident. And again, your job is to get shit back up and running. And IR's consultant's job is to figure out what happened, figure it out quickly, so that the business can recover. Most of us don't have the time to write the scripts. We don't have the time to buy the ETDR tool. If I show up and if you call me after you've collected that dump directory, I'm a really happy IR consultant. Yeah. So now I've got a lot of data. I've got a lot of places to go. I've got a lot of things to look at. And thank you for not giving me an image of a hard drive of a system you've already shut off, because that breaks my heart and makes me cry and makes me charge you more. So some tools. For those of you that don't know, there's a great script out there that Corey Harrell released called the TR3 Script. So if you go on the journey into IR at blogspot.com, you can see it. For those of you that have used it, has anybody ever used the TR3 script? Yeah, it's pretty complicated, right? Like it's a batch script, but it's a really fancy batch script. It's not like ghetto batch scripts like the kind I write. But there's a lot of stuff going on there, right? And it's like, oh, I'm going to put this particular file in this particular directory. And what I found was when you work with that tool, you spend a lot of time looking for the tools for the stuff that you collected. So you're recursing down a lot of directories and this sort of thing. So I just tend to put all the shit in one folder, and now I know where the files are, so I can go process them. The crowd response tool, thanks to a buddy of mine named Chris Merritt, who's here in the local area. He's the director of the CrowdStrike SOC. And then the Belkasoft, the shady Russian software, was a former colleague of mine named Jordan Cruz, who turned me on to that. So if you go to make sure you go to the English version. Don't go to the .ru version, because, I don't know, you'll probably get Russian porn or something. Many thanks. There's my Twitter handle. Don't send me spam. And Ernst & Young is always hiring, and we're always willing to talk to people willing to put on a suit and go do some work. So what questions can I answer? I know I don't have that much time, but what questions do you guys have? Or did I just overwhelm you with my eliteness? Yeah? All right. And I'm fully clothed. Did anybody hear me say Because I'm supposed to take off clothes, right, every time I say Yeah, no, No, you did not say once. Yeah, good job. All right, well, cool. Thanks, guys.